It's important to consider our decision to invade Iraq because we're going to have to make the same kind of decision again and again. Analyzing the reasons why we went to war with Iraq will permit us to glean some principles that we can use the next time we are confronted with the choice to invade or not invade. Essentially, there were two basic rationales for invading Iraq. The first was that the Iraqi regime was a threat to the United States because they had weapons of mass destruction that they were going to either use directly or indirectly through terrorist proxies. The second rationale was that we should invade Iraq to liberate the Iraqi people from Saddam's evil dictatorship and then create a democracy. We were going to examine each rationale independently, starting with the second. Let's see how President Bush expressed the second rationale in his State of the Union address.
I have a message for the brave and oppressed people of Iraq. Your enemy is not surrounding your country. Your enemy is ruling your country. And the day he and his regime are removed from power will be the day of your liberation. We exercise power without conquest, and we sacrifice for the liberty of strangers.
How and when was President Bush persuaded that the federal government should force American citizens to sacrifice for the liberty of strangers? When did liberating other nations and creating democracies become the responsibility of the federal government? He certainly did not think so when he was campaigning as governor for president. Let's see what he had to say on this subject during the debates.
So I don't think our troops ought to be used for what's called nation building. I think what we need to do is convince people who live in the lands they live in to build the nations. Maybe I'm missing something here. I mean, we're going to have kind of a nation-building corps from America? Absolutely not.
The United States is presently nation-building in Haiti, Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq, among others. Arnaud de Borgrav is a veteran anti-communist conservative, by no means a peacenik. Who do you think he agrees with, Bush the candidate or Bush the president?
You know, there's no ideal model of democracy. Everybody finds his own way of governing. Some are terrible, some are mediocre, some are good. The United States cannot expect that everybody is going to emulate our own model of democracy. And to think that you can impose democracy in the Middle East is a pipe dream. Again, education, prosperous middle class, all these things take time.
People have to adhere to certain values that are the basis for democracy and for a constitutional republic before they can actually change their system. It cannot be imposed from outside, because if the people don't adhere to those values, they won't hold. Is that your view?
Absolutely, and especially if it's perceived to be an American system being imposed from the outside.
Because each country has a certain amount of nationalism, including our own country. And they don't like other people to come in and tell them how to run their country.
That is correct.
Former CIA defense contractor and consulting firm Booz, Allen and Hamilton expressed the president's second rationale for going to war as follows.
The principle is that over the last 80-some years, I think really beginning with the Wilson administration, the United States has successfully moved a large number of countries, only a handful by force of arms, toward democracy.
Apparently, the former CIA director does not distinguish between moving a country to democracy through persuasion and moving them through force of arms. For him, both are equally good. Furthermore, he thinks that jamming democracy down other countries' throat will work. Compare that view with Arnaud de Borgrav's. Do you think that it's sufficient reason to invade another country that they have an evil dictator who has weapons of mass destruction, has violated his people's rights, and has attacked a neighbor?
Well, that's certainly the underpinnings of the Bush Doctrine of preemption.
As you were saying before, if we apply that doctrine, as each country comes close to having nuclear weapons or has them, we would then have to have the burden of going in there and preempting and doing regime change country after country. Isn't that a scenario that makes absolutely no sense?
Well, it doesn't make much sense to me. It worked with Iraq, and I can see them trying it again with one other country. Eventually, it'll reach the point of diminishing returns, and I think you will have a backlash on the home front. People will say, enough is enough. We're not here to police the whole world.
I asked the former CIA director whether there was any constitutional authority to promote freedom by invading other countries. Is promoting freedom a proper function of our government? And if so,
yes.
In what part of the Constitution does it say so?
The whole Constitution is about freedom.
But promoting freedom in the rest of the world is a responsibility of the federal government in the Constitution?
Protecting the United States over the long run has been vastly enhanced by the fact that administrations going back to the World War I era have used force abroad and formed alliances and persuaded people to move toward democracy.
Excuse me, my question was that what part of the Constitution does it say that we are supposed to promote freedom in the rest of the world?
The Constitution starts out by talking about promoting the common defense.
In the United States. The Constitution only authorizes the use of force in the common defense of the states. For force to be considered defensive, someone has to be attacking us or there has to be an imminent threat of attack. The generalization that dictatorships are generally more aggressive than democracies cannot be used to justify an attack on any dictatorship we feel like. The reason why he cannot find a rational justification for nation building is because there is none. Bush the candidate was right.